Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our series 10 Days to a Better Company. This is Bill Giannone on behalf of the Crest Network, and I'm so happy that you're continuing to follow us as we progress through these 10 days. Today's day 5, it's the end of the week, and it's a good time for us to center around a really good stopping point for ourselves as we move through this 10-day period. Today, we're going to talk about gross profit and how to put it all together. Gross profit, as you may or may not know, is the difference between what your revenue number is and what your costs are for doing that project. Also known as cost of goods sold, these costs of executing the project makes your difference between squeaking by and killing it. All the rest of your expenses in your company are what we call fixed costs. And over the course of any month or quarter or year even, we have very little ability to make those changes in our fixed costs. But if we can execute our work more profitably and more efficiently, we absolutely could put more money in our pocket. So the final step we have to take before we can calculate this gross profit is we have to take into account other expenses we may incur. Remember, on day 3, we talked about our labor costs, and on day 4, we talked about our materials and supplies costs. Well, those make up the great portion of most of our projects. But remember, there are a couple of other things that you will have incurred on your projects that you have to include as cost of goods. Things like vehicle use, including your fuel costs. You're using your trucks to go back and forth to the job. You're putting fuel in those trucks. You wouldn't be putting fuel in those trucks if it weren't for that project. So let's make sure we allocate some fuel costs directly to your projects. You have subcontractors on some jobs. Sometimes you might have to have an electrician come out and assist you with some electrical issues, or a plumber, or even if you had somebody come out to do testing, third-party testing for asbestos or lead, let's say. Those testing fees would be included. You would have equipment rentals on some of your larger projects. Many of you may have to go out and rent some additional equipment. On some jobs where maybe there's no electric in the facility and you're doing work, you may need to go out and rent a generator. A lot of us don't have generators in our equipment supply, so if you have to rent that, that cost would go in there as well. And obviously in trash and debris removal, many times we have to take the debris away and we have dump fees associated with that. Let's make sure we're adding all those, what I call direct costs of doing the work, together. We can do that, and we can make sure that that comes off of our number as well. So let's start talking about gross profit in a way that we'll all understand. It's very, very simple math. It's revenue, but don't forget, on day 2, we talked about slippage. So your gross profit really is revenue after slippage. It's your invoiced amount minus what you did not get in. So it's really what you took in. Now minus your labor costs, which, if we remember back to day 3, involved all of our labor costs, including our own burden and benefits. Our materials costs, we have to subtract those as well. And then finally, what we just discussed, all of our additional costs. If we do that simple math, we're going to be left with something that's called gross profit. That's how efficiently you are doing your work. What is a good gross profit margin? If you're not asking this question, then you're really not focused on the importance of gross profit, and this entire week has kind of been a lesson in futility. Hopefully by now you really do want to drill down and figure out that gross profit. Once again, we're taking all our numbers and we're dividing them by the number of projects, giving us at the end one single gross profit number. So that gross profit number divided by the revenue number gives us our gross profit margin. So it's really simple. For residential water damage restoration projects, your target gross profit margin should be between 70 and 80%. If it's not between 70 and 80%, we're going to need to figure out why. I even break down the numbers right in here. That means your total cost should fall between 20 and 30% of your revenue amount, leaving you with 70 to 80% of profit. Of that amount, your labor should account for between 15 and 20% of your overall amount, and your consumables should fall between 3 and 5%, with the remainder made up of your fuel costs, trash disposal, and other miscellaneous costs. But the important numbers that you should understand are your labor should be between 15 and 20, and your consumables should be between 3 and 5. If you're doing a job where your consumables are more than 5% of your project, you're probably not buying your consumables at a good enough rate, and we need to discuss that. If your labor is exceeding 20% of your total invoice amount, then you're probably not calculating your labor right to the point where you're you're spending too much on your labor for the project. So you might have too many guys going to the job, or you need to raise the rate in Xactimate or in your own invoicing software to reflect a higher hourly rate so that your labor number falls in this range. Okay? If you're not in this range, I said you have to ask that question, why not? The why not comes with being a manager and being a good owner. You need to be able to do the analysis. And like I said, over the last 5 sessions, we've given you a ton of really good go-to information for you to look at. Data always drives the decision making. If you feel like it's because of X, but you look at the data and it says it's because of Y, a lot of times your gut could be fooling you and you could be looking at something that might not be accurate. Let's use the data. We've spent a lot of effort collecting that data. We've spent a lot of time working on looking at it, and I've given you the roadmap now to analyze it. So let's use that as our analysis and our why nots. Guys, thank you so much for dealing with us this week, for following along with the 5 days. We're going to start with a next week approach, starting on day 6 with analyzing some of our other costs in our company so that we can really drill down and make our company much more profitable and much better. So we're done with the first week. Let's take a breath. Let's do that analysis. Before we move forward, let's make sure we can answer not only what our gross profit margin is, but why it is where it is. On behalf of everyone at the Crest Network, I want to thank you so much for joining us, and I want to wish you a very happy day. This is Bill Giannone saying thanks so much. Bye-bye.